So Daniel, how was your last couple of weeks? Why don't we catch
It
up?
was super stressful. There was lots going on. So it started with really nice stressfulness, for lack of a better term. Um, my boyfriend and I went to Montreal and we had the best time. And he'd never been to Quebec before, so he was very pleasantly surprised because he had a lot of preconceptions of um, what he might like and what he might not like. And I think the Quebecers really won him over.
Hear that?
There was a moment on the Sunday when we were sitting.
Nice.
Oh, there's another thing that I need to tell you that remind me to get back to that. um, we were sitting in a British pub in the Malland of Montreal, and he was like, you know, if I didn't need to learn French to live here, I would consider moving here.
That's a bit of a little bit of a requirement though. Do you need to speak French to live there?
I would. So there was this news story recently about the CEO of Air Canada who had lived in Montreal. He did this interview and it sort of got taken out of context, but he essentially said, I've lived in Montreal for 7 years and I've never needed French. And and then all of the politicians felt compelled to respond and be like, oh, Air Canada is a federal company and they provide services in English and French and it's really important to us.
Yeah.
But I guess because, particularly in Montreal, everyone speaks English so well, you'd be able to get away with it if you found a job in like a company that lets you work in English. But I still feel like it would be awkward because you would be like the odd one out at work who couldn't communicate in that language.
Yeah. And make everyone kind of translate for you, basically speak to you.
Yeah. Yeah, but we had a great time. There may have been a moment where fairly late on the Sunday where I was singing along to Sous le Vent by Celine and Garou in one of the bars that we went to, and the rest of the bar did it too, so it was fine. It was a karaoke place,
Oh,
and
nice.
there was this group of people in it who had clearly just gone out for a few drinks and had got stuck, and suddenly it was 1 o'clock in the morning.
You got to finish. You have to like beat the karaoke. Like you have to like.
Yes.
It's like a boss level that you have to pass, basically.
We left before them, though.
So you didn't have to hear their terrible singing?
Only were pretty good, actually.
That's kind of nice.
They were pretty
karaoke
good.
And someone's good. It's like,
yeah.
What a surprise.
And while I was traveling out to Montreal, my boss called me and told me that I could come to Seattle for the week, which is why I had to cancel last week because I got invited to an offsite last minute. And it was there was a lot to do. It was basically doing work 24/7. And yeah, it was intense, but it was really good to see everyone in person because I hadn't seen most of the people who I was with, and that was really good about it. And I've now got a bunch of stuff to follow up on this week because there's this magical thing that happens because there's so much stuff you can do. Like 95% of everything you need to do in an office job you can do from home, but there is the 5% where you magically start discovering connections and then you end up with a lot of new projects that you didn't realize were important before.
It's like a reminder, like, oh, there's in-person stuff. Yeah, 95%. But for that 5%, got to be there in person.
No, yeah.
In the flesh.
And so that was last week, and then I got home, and then we watched. Are you aware of a TV show called Gogglebox?
Gogglebox?
Hmm.
No, I haven't heard of it.
It's a Channel 4 show in the UK, and it's been running for years and years and years. And when I tell people over here about it, they're usually very confused because the format is you sat on a sofa with a friend or with your husband or like your partner, and you get they send you this little box that films you, and you plug it in, and every week it shows you a selection of TV programs from the UK, and it films your reaction to it. And then what you see on Gogglebox is you see the thing that the people are watching, and then you see them respond to it.
Okay.
And it is, and the reason I'm telling you is there was one news program where they were interviewing somebody, and they were saying, I was sat in a cafe, and then it cut to some I want to say fairly upper class people, the fairly upper class couple that does it, and the husband went, "It's sitting, past participle, sitting."
That one will come up again and again. I feel like it sounds British when people say that. As sat.
Yes. Yes.
I
I feel like most people would colloquially say sat.
Yeah.
And not sitting. But sitting is the more grammatically correct one, I think.
That's right. But it's like what is correct and what is used are maybe different.
Yes.
It's like the fewer, 10 or fewer. It's a lost art, you know?
One of the interns that I used to manage at Microsoft, he always used to say to me, "Oh, yeah, people might make fun of my American accent, but I say things correctly in other languages because there is a difference between like how British people like to like anglicize foreign words a lot more, whereas Americans, particularly with like Spanish words, tend to be closer to the actual Spanish pronunciation of them." And whenever people made fun of his accent or picked him up on it, he would always use that as an argument. Like, at least I say cilantro more correctly than you do.
You got to know your strengths. You
Mm.
know, I say things correctly. That's funny. That's, yeah, a lot of people say that. Oh, we say it this way. There's like a right way to say things wrong in English from other languages.
Yes.
Like we don't expect people to say Louis Vuitton.
Mm.
We're saying Louis Vuitton, right? And that's not correct, but that's what people say. So if you don't say it that way, it's like you're like too stuck up or something. You know what I mean?
Like Cartier.
Yes, exactly. Like, just how do they say it in the rap songs, or how do they say it in the pop songs? Because that's going to be like the normal way to say it. and you'll have advice from a channel on YouTube. I don't know if you know, like the kind of robotic French voice that says how to pronounce French brands on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
In French, which is great, but then people are like, "Oh, but people say it this way in English, and I said it this way in French, and they didn't know what I was talking about." And the guy's like, "Oh well." And he wasn't like, yes, he didn't acknowledge that there's a correct way to say things that are French and English, right? Like,
one really good one that I just thought of is in America, including Canada, people tend to say Audi for the automotive brand, whereas in the UK, people say Audi like you say in German.
Yeah. Audi versus Audi?
Yeah.
Is one more correct?
I think Audi is what people would say in Germany, but that doesn't make it less or more correct. It's just what people are used to.
Which one's right though? We need to know. One's right in British, one's right in...
Yeah, one's right in British and one's right in American.
Audi. Yeah. It sounds... Maybe because it sounds like Audi, which is what people say either for like a belly button that's an Audi belly button, or they're like, "See you later, I'm Audi." Like,
oh yeah, because it's an OU sound.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that sound does not exist in British English, so it's able to fit into that gap, because people will call it an outie. not an Audi.
Of course, yeah.
So you would hear that difference.
It's that flap T, you know. To
Mm.
some people, it's such a D sound that they can't
And
even.
then the last thing I had to tell you was I was I was trying to catch up on some practice as I was coming back from Seattle, and I was redoing the assessment that we had done right at the beginning, and it was really good. I mean, it's easier because I know the things that we went over based on the assessment, but it was really easy to do it with all the corrections that you had pointed out because we'd obviously gone through them.
Yeah, that's like a good practice almost. It's not like minimal pairs where it's a skill builder, it's like a skill tester kind of. But once you know how to do it, is it easier to do that with the corrections highlighted to you as you go?
Yeah, it just makes you remember all the different connections that we'd gone through, if that makes sense. Because as you say, it's a skill tester. So then as I was going through, I was noticing when I wasn't doing something, and then that meant, okay, I haven't I did not do the TH in this one, for example. So now I'm going to go down to the TH section. I'm going to do the minimal pairs there, and I'm going to come back.
That's brilliant. That's like what I would say to do, actually. It's like, you sound like me. Like, and was it helpful to kind of like catch up or to refresh?
Yeah, particularly after being away, and like while I was in Seattle, it was 24/7 work, so I didn't get a chance to look at it. But what I did notice was I was trying really hard to use Canadian words in front of Americans for some reason.
In Seattle.
Yeah,
What do you mean by Canadian words?
just for show. For example, washroom instead of restroom, or
That's a good one.
that was the one that really, like, I said it, and then I thought back to me saying it, and I was like, that's not usually the thing that I would usually say bathroom or something. If I was speaking to my friends at home, I would say bathroom.
Yeah.
But I think I said washroom just to be extra Canadian about it.
And just make it obvious, like, we call it this, and it's better. It's the right way. Yeah. I don't like how British people call it the toilet, because I'm like, that's too direct for me.
Very direct.
It's like, you know, I don't want to know what's happening in there. Gonna go freshen up, you know. That's funny how people, yeah.
Since moving here, I started saying I need to go wash my hands a lot. I was like,
That's a good one.
as a euphemism.
Yeah. Speaking of reading passage, though, I wanted to test you on a new passage today, since that other one is like, you've done it, right? You know it already. So what I would do is actually, even before saying this, instead of just getting you to say it and record it, why don't we break it down like how we would have broken down the other passage? So like, for example, if we want to look up TH, we're going to go Control Find, going to press TH, and then it's going to show us all the THs here. I love this trick. Everyone's so impressed. It's a keyboard shortcut.
It looks really cool. You should share your screen for the
that's right.
Recording.
Present this. A tab. That's going to be this tab. Share. Excellent. So we did our Control F TH. I'm just going to go through, and now I'm going to underline them. So that will stop you. That's like the break.
THs in our document.
There's a lot. This is the most common sound in spoken English, not in written, but in spoken, because of the demonstratives we use with it, like the, that, those, these, those grammar words. There we go. So that would be a TH. Do you want to add one more feature to pay attention to? Like flap T, maybe? We won't be able to control
Flat
that.
T would be good.
Okay. So we're going to have to, actually, let's control F double T just to see if there's any of those types of flap Ts in this. No, it took me all the way up here. Come on.
Oh, it's not taking you right to the top.
Oh, okay. Aha. Just in stuff that you just said, but not in the actual.
Sitting.
Oh, buttons. So we know buttons isn't a flap
Button.
T, in fact. It's a glottal stop end sound, right? Buttons.
Mm-hmm.
Buttons. So I'm going to put a bold on that instead of the underline just to differentiate. And as we go, I'm going to highlight. So do you see a 90?
90, yeah.
We can do a flap T there or like a softer, like 90, like that. And we've got buttons. Okay, that's a T we want to use. At most, that's regular T. With zest upon. I want you to connect zest and upon using this T.
Mm.
So I'll hold underline. And then for winter, this is up to you. You can say like winter, although winter is a little bit more clear because winter is a different word.
Mm.
But that's how people do say it. Sorry, I didn't mean to underline. Let's
Yeah,
try.
I feel like people where we live say winter more, whereas in other places they say winter.
Yeah. Maybe they don't have as much winter as us, so they need to just.
Yeah. They don't need to differentiate as much.
Last winter. Read the passage. Use the highlight things as like a pause or a break, like put on the brakes to say the sound. But let's give it a try.
You wished. No, sorry, I'll start again. No, look over here. This is better. It's bigger here, like it's smaller there. You wish to know all about my grandfather? Well, he is nearly 93 years old. He dresses himself in an ancient black frock coat. Sorry, I needed to wait for the color to wish you had the color picker down. He dresses himself in an ancient black frock coat, usually minus several buttons, yet he still thinks as swiftly as ever. A long flowing beard clings to his chin, giving those who observe him a pronounced feeling of the utmost respect. When he speaks, his voice is just a bit cracked and quivers a trifle. Twice each day he plays skillfully and with zest upon our small organ. Except in the winter, when the ooze or snow or ice prevents, he slowly takes a short walk in the open air each day. We have often urged him to walk more and smoke less. But he always answers banana oil. Grandfather's likes to be modern in his language.
Any surprises?
I think
Banana
it's
oil.
like grandfather's.
Grandfather at the last one.
Grandfather. Father. I actually, when I was practicing this week, I did notice there was a word, and I don't remember what it was, but it was like when it is the TH and then a vowel, it makes it harder to get your tongue out and back in and
Yeah, you have to kind
because
of.
you go father.
Yeah.
But now I'm trying, so it's easier to do.
It's hard to do R, the TH, and the R because R requires your tongue tip to curl a bit, and then you got to touch the teeth. So we just have to slow down a bit, and once that.
That's one to practice.
Yeah.
And some of the vowel sounds I noticed, and I noticed this in normal speech as well. Like sometimes I do an a more Englishy A sound, and sometimes I do more like an O, like a more American one. And it's kind of in between at the moment. So sometimes I'll go, wait, kind of trying to overdo it. Wait, no.
Like instead of no.
Yeah.
What about walk
And
versus
with A's
walk?
as well, there is like I don't know, father and maybe like father.
That's a minimal pair, so they should sound the same. The vowel, father, father,
Father,
fodder.
father.
And this will
So
be
it should be
another,
father as well.
this will
Wait,
also,
was that what you said? So
these two will sound the
father is
same,
okay.
and they're minimal pairs with,
Father.
yeah.
Okay, I understand what you mean now. Yeah, makes sense.
So that vowel, fa,
Mm,
there's no rounding there. Make sure.
mm.
Father, fa.
Father.
So the rounding is like pushing in a bit. Like I know the mouth is naturally round, so
Mhm.
saying no rounding is not possible, but no added rounding. So
Yeah.
let me hear you say, because walk has the W, which is round, it's going to be harder. So you have to have the W, drop the jaw, no rounding. So
Okay.
walk.
Walk.
Yeah. So that expansion, wa,
Mhm.
you let the tension
Because
go.
yeah, that's an obvious one as well, because that would usually for me be walk.
Yeah, you need to make it more like walk. What about father walks a lot with all the same vowel?
Father walks a lot.
Good. Now for the tongue between your teeth, let's slow this one down. Father
Father
walks a lot.
walks a lot.
Sounds good. Yeah. What if we made it more complicated? Oops, try that one.
Father walk. Father walks a lot farther.
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 That one's tough, hey? It's RTH.
Mm.
Farther.
Yeah,
Far.
RTH is the toughest, I think. I noticed that when practicing this week.
Here's a British word to say in English, say in Canadian English. See if you can do that to RTH.
Farthing.
Excellent.
As in
Farthing.
money?
Farthing. Yeah.
Farthing?
Or one of those big wheel bicycles. The huge wheel in the front, the penny farthing. Penny farthing
I
bicycle.
didn't know it was called that. Farthing.
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 Oh, that TH after the R is voiced, right? Farthing. It's not
Farthing.
Yeah. So that sounds good. It's just like the TH in father is voiced. Father.
Father.
Excellent.
Farthing.
What happens when you make the sound, or sorry, by putting grand in front of it, it makes it more complicated. It buries the target a bit more.
Oh yeah, because it's two different A's, right?
Grandfather. It's like
grandfather.
Yeah. Grandfather. Father.
Grandfather.
Good. Nice
Yeah,
TH.
I didn't voice the TH in the first one. I was hoping you wouldn't notice.
I'm like, I don't know if I noticed actually. Let me hear it a few more times. Let me hear grandfather a few more times. Grandfather.
Grandfather.
Good. This one, people usually, remember how we talked about assimilation last week with the like best man and that kind of utmost, that kind of thing? You can kill the D on this one and say grandfather, N to F, grandfather.
Oh, that might actually make it easier.
It might, yeah.
Grandfather.
Yeah. Don't forget your tongue at your teeth. Push a little air over it. Grandfather.
Grandfather.
Let's take the ending ER off, and I just want you to say grandfather, landing on TH.
Grandfather.
Nice. One more time.
Grandfather.
Good. Now let's take off grand and say father like that.
Grandfather.
Good. Fa.
Father.
Now stitching them both together. Grandfather.
Grandfather.
Sorry, I did the D in that one. Let's try it without the D. Grandfather.
Grandfather.
There we go. Grandfather. Grandfather. Let me hear one more time.
Grandfather.
Nice. That sounds really good. So I think you have this motion kind of at the perfect spot. So when you're reading the passage and you were, did you see any surprises, like any unusual words or unusual sounds that you thought?
No, because like sometimes with the sentences and stuff you give me, sometimes I don't, because sometimes you're trying to like go for certain sounds and then it's unusual words that I might not be aware of, and that usually throws me off. But this one didn't seem to have any of those. I'd like to record this in my own time and then be super critical about each bit.
Yeah, this could even be a practice sentence. Like usually these are for testing, kind of because it's a long passage. But if you broke it down and used, like, each sentence could be its own practice because there's so many factors that you could look at.
But you know, I like doing passages because if it's a sentence where we're only practicing one thing, I will know what to focus on.
Yep.
And then it just adds an extra challenge. That makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. It can be kind of boring with just the minimal pairs. That's like the equivalent of playing scales on the piano. Like you want to play a real song eventually after you learn your scales. So
yeah,
that's the goal. And
but you also need the minimal pairs to like help you if
you have to hear the difference.
If you cannot get over getting a sound right, the minimal pairs are super useful as well.
Yeah, that discrimination, we call it auditory discrimination, is a skill that people lose at like 9.5 months of age as babies. So by getting that skill back, you can kind of overcome, you know, the brain's sensitive windows. So I wanted to take you through, as we highlighted each thing, I wanted to take you through like individual words or phrases, like 93.
93.
93. That one sounds great, actually. Your TH is good there. What about just this phrase?
Yet he still thinks as swiftly as ever.
Nice. So that TH was perfect. What about this one's so long? Let's make it shorter.
Giving those who observe him.
Let me hear the R and observe.
Observe.
Good. One more of the phrase.
Giving those who observe him.
Perfect. That was excellent. One more time.
Giving those who observe him.
Good. Now we're going to say this one and we'll knit them together. So just say this phrase.
A pronounced feeling of the utmost respect.
Good. Nice. Excellent. Shapes. TH. Great. Now.
Giving those who observe him a pronounced feeling of the utmost respect.
Excellent. That was careful. That was on point. Like every sound was great. Did you like how you sounded? Was the
R strong enough? I wasn't sure if the R was strong enough.
Yeah, it was perfect. Yeah. Everything sounded great. Feeling of the. So you have that. Excellent. Okay. This one is hard. I'm just going to say I'm possessed.
Yeah. Twice each day he plays skillfully and with zest upon our small organ.
Nice. And the R in organ was perfect. Okay. Now we've talked about these R's that kind of lead into consonants. Let me hear this one. I didn't think the R on this one was strong enough.
A long flowing beard.
That's right. Good.
It wasn't as strong when I read it. I feel like I may have skipped over it.
Yeah, it was more like beard. Beard.
Beard.
And then there was this more down here. This was, I think, the other. Okay, let's do this more.
I think
So this one was
I think I
moi.
got confused because I said walk, and then I was in that feeling, so I didn't do the R either. we have often urged him to walk more.
Nice. We have often urged him to walk more.
You want me to go again? Sorry. We have often urged him to walk more.
Excellent. Okay, now I want to hear this.
Our small organ.
Good. So just some of these R's, like before consonants, sometimes get swallowed up. This is totally common and expected for your language background. So it's normal. It's a normal sound to overcome. How do you feel about the sound in your like daily life? Does it come up and do you feel like you have a handle on it?
So these last 2 weeks were confusing because being in Montreal, I spoke a lot of French. And then I went to Seattle and I didn't have a lot of sleep. And I walked straight off my plane into the hotel in Seattle and I went, bonsoir, ça va bien?
Like what?
Oh no, I'm in America now. So and then it sort of took me 3 days to get back into the swing of things. So usually I've got more sort of anecdotes to tell you about. I was also in conferencing situations all week. But yeah, I don't know if there's necessarily I'm not sure if I've picked up on something. There was something before we went to Montreal. We were my boyfriend and I went out with another friend, and he then turned around to me and went, when you speak to other people, you sound a lot more American than when you speak to me. I was like, yes, I've observed that too.
That's so interesting. How we have, it's like code switching. Have you heard about this? We switch. Yeah. I think that's a good way to communicate.
But it's also something that I have between languages anyway. So it might take me a while to switch, but I definitely noticed myself in my brain walking from the English room to the French room and sitting down in there and like making myself comfortable while I was in Montreal. And then when I was thrown into America, I had to very quickly leave that room.
Yeah, you have to it's like jet lag, but like with language.
It is very much like that.
My advice to people who are like switching between languages all the time is like, before you go into English, you have to like prime yourself in English to get your brain ready to do English, because your brain's just like the Squid Game, right? It's like whatever's on top last, whatever's easiest, the claw will reach. You know what I mean?
I was so impressed with everyone, with people who work in restaurants and shops in Montreal, because they have to go back and forth all the time and it's so natural to them. I don't think it exists on the same level anywhere else in Canada, because it was literally like there's one table here and the lady serving us would be like speaking French to them, and then she would come to our table and she would speak English to my boyfriend and then French again to me, and then turn around and speak English to the next table, and she would remember.
That's amazing. It's the skill to go back and forth. Yeah, it's just practice, I guess, right? After enough practice, after daily life for years and years, it gets easier.
And
I think that's
even
pretty
like,
common for
and even
Quebecers.
mid-sentence, so he would ask, "Oh, could we have our bill, please?" And then she'd turn around to me and say, "She's down, dude."
That's amazing. Yeah. Actually, my downstairs neighbor is Quebecois, and I hear her use English and French in the same sentence. Like, and so she must be talking to another Quebecois speaker that's speaking English and French in the same sentence. And I'm like, that is so cool. Like, I'm not listening, but sounds really cool. That skill is just like exposure and practice. So if you that's a skill that you can work on and gain if you want. But the priming thing is good to just kind of switch back if you need to quickly switch back if you had a sentence like my grandfather is nearly 93 years old or whatever, something that you might have liked since the last script, like English is the language of the air. So all pilots must speak English when flying, stuff like that, like something that switches you back into your kind of mouth setup. Because if you think about it, like between each language, you're going to have it's like different sports using different muscle groups, right? So you'll have different musculature built up for those. So in the end, you'll end up kind of being like a triathlete with all these kind of muscles that you can do your 3 different languages in. That's a good skill to build. I'm aware of the time, and I have another student in a bit, so I want to kind of summarize what we talked about and set a goal for you to work on for the next week.
Okay.
Does that sound good? What would you, if the goal was to read this passage and record yourself, do you think that that's a doable goal? Like breaking it down, like what if we broke it down sentence by sentence, like literally just after every period, right? So that would break it down at first. So it might not
that's
be
good.
Record the whole thing at once. How about record sentence 1 and then that sounds good. Record sentence 2. So by practicing these one sentence at a time, you'll get more experience with them as opposed to practicing it as a whole group. By the time you get back to the top, you'll have kind of forgotten that again. So you need to do sections, and then once you're comfortable with all the sections, then you can start putting them together. Like sentence 1 and sentence 2, sentence 2 and sentence 3, sentence 1, 2, 3, that kind of thing. Like we go up stepwise in difficulty. We want to go increase the complexity for you so that it's like more meaningful practice.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So that could be
I'll
it.
send
Reading
you my
passage.
recordings if you're interested.
Review, yes. Revise. Once you've kind of, it's like when I play a song, I'm not recording all the time, but once I'm ready and I think it's good, I'll record it. Of course, that's when I usually forget how to play.
Oh yeah.
Press record for some reason.
Always happens. I do a lot of I host community calls in my work. So I have like 300 people on a call and it happens all the time, right? And then sometimes it's just like an off day and you just go, I have no idea what I'm talking about.
Yeah, gotta switch.
And you literally made the slide deck the night before and you know exactly what it's going to be on and you just go, I need to read the slide. I have no idea what we're going to
do. You could just draw a blank, kind of your mind will empty out. It's I don't know what they call it in French, but when you have something on the tip of your tongue, almost can think of the word, but it's not quite there. And the word's like hiding because
I think it's at the tip of your mouth in French. Le début de ma bouche. I'm not sure. I'll look it up for you.
That phenomenon though, like the word's like hiding because it knows you're looking for it. It's kind of like that's what the brain does, you know. So that would be our goal. You can send me recordings and
it's also tip of your tongue apparently. Sur le bout de ma langue.
Ah, nice. Sur le bout de ma langue. I'll have to practice that. I don't use my French enough for it to be like functional.
Mine was super rusty when we first arrived, and everyone was like, "Oh, I'll just speak English to you." And like by the end of the week, they were like, "Oh, okay, but we'll speak English to him."
That's how you know you're good, is when they'll continue speaking French to you because they don't hear that terrible accent that means you need to change.
But they are very they were very encouraging actually. Everyone whom we met was so nice.
That's great. I'm glad. I love to hear that actually, when people are polite to each other about their languages instead of being like rude. And I also wanted to give you this list that I noticed when you were saying them.
Oh. Oh, when did you do that?
Wait, confused. Sorry, this isn't from the script. This is when you were
Oh,
talking.
yeah.
So invited. I want to hear
Invited.
that. Like a motorcycle. Invited.
Invited.
Yeah. Confused instead of confused, right?
Oh.
You don't want to sound South African. You are not confused. You're confused, right? Confused.
Confused.
And when you said I thought of, it was like I thought. So push your tongue out to block the lip on that one. I
thought, yeah.
thought of. And you said I thought
I
back.
sometimes notice myself doing that one.
Yeah.
This one's really common.
They're so close together and they sound the same, right?
Mm.
It's just this small difference. So if you get the tongue there, it blocks the lip, and then your teeth can't touch the lip. So I think of it as a block. Instead of saying don't touch your teeth to your lip, it's like touch your teeth to your tongue.
Yeah.
And they won't be able to touch your lip, kind of. So that's for thought and fought. We'll work more on TH later. Like we'll have some new stimuli or some new drills or something to do. Where they were. This sounded like where they were. Yeah. And then this wasn't actually related. I was just kind of writing what you're saying. So these ones. So the script and then just these words to keep in mind. Let me say confused like that.
Confused.
And I compare it to a British accent or a South African accent when they say the whole confused like that.
J'étais confusé.
And in French too. Like English is like the worst because it's so lazy. But
it's actually right. I'm just thinking that it's right.
Excellent work today. Any questions, comments, or concerns before we sign off?
Type the word and it went, you should also look at tabernac.
Isn't that like the worst swear you could say?
We might need to bleep that out.
Yeah, in English it doesn't sound offensive, but I guess to a French person it's like wow. Yeah. All right.
No, it's not. It's j'étais confus.
Just say confused?
Just for correction purposes, yeah.
I was confused. I see.
I think you need to do a you need to do a voiced S because feminine because it yeah.
Confused. Right? Confused. Like that.
No, I think it's still. I don't know, but
yeah, my French is pretty rusty. I'm like Paul Taylor.
Anyone watching this is not taking this as advice for how they should speak French.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so bad with the gender and tense in French like that. My accent is good, but like my language is bad. My grammar is bad. That's the problem of being a phonetician. Good at pronouncing stuff, but you don't know the rest.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. It's like and I know you need to go, but I feel like one difference that I appreciate about Quebec French is that it's a lot more about being understood than necessarily being right, whereas Metropolitan French puts a very big emphasis on being correct. So even if you say something that is understandable, people will still go, I think you mean this.
Even if they totally know what you're saying. And you can get free accent coaching in France, though. It's just that the cost of it is your ego and your humiliation by constantly being corrected by people. Yeah. That's why I have a job in Canada, because Canadians are too polite to give people feedback on their pronunciation. So lucky me, someone's got to do it. It's a tough job.
And you do it very well.
Thank you. Lovely talking to you as usual. I'm looking forward to listening to your passage a bit deeper and then showing you some more, nitpicking some more things, splitting some more hairs, and
that'll be
diving
good.
in deeper. Yeah. So I'll see you next week.
Yeah, see you next week.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.